All right.
So, all right. Well,
yeah.
shall I go ahead and call it to order, or?
Yeah, let me just show this quick agenda. Here's tonight's agenda. We have a great presentation for you tonight on student data, and we have a couple special guests, so we're really excited to share that, as well as we'll be doing some stakeholder engagement questions that help inform the LCAP. So I'm going to turn it over to Tom Nelson, our chair.
Okay, well, thank you, Laura. First of all, I want to thank everybody for attending. Really appreciate it. And actually, one of the things that helps to remember to thank people helps to remind me that you have taken time out of your evening to spend with us. And it also helps to remind us that all the people here have very different lives, and that's part of connecting with the LCAP, is bringing this diversity together. So with that, I will give the floor to our board liaison, and for any board liaison updates she may have. Welcome, Paula. Paula Viasquez is our LCAP board liaison, and she is also president of our school board. So very honored, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for turning it over to me. Hi, I'm Paula Viasquez, president of the San Juan Unified School District, and as Tom noted, current board liaison to the committee. Happy to serve in that capacity. I recognize it's definitely a lot of work. You all can attest to that as well. So I also want to note that Vice President and Dr. McKibben is also a liaison to this committee, and we'll be working together to make sure that at every single meeting and event there's board representation. I want to thank you all for serving in this capacity. Really appreciate the role of the committee in kind of the broader ecosystem. In terms of any big updates, I mean, we just had a board meeting this week. It's all hands on deck on doing making sure that we're ready to bring our kids back to class as soon as we can. That's really what the top priority is across the board. But again, also excited to be here in this capacity, and also wanted to just say at the outset, I have a lot of opportunities to speak, and so I view my role here as to listen. So I don't want that to be mistaken for a lack of engagement. I'm really here to listen to the conversation and to input from you all. And so I just wanted to kind of say that at the outset. That's what I view my role as here. But of course, I'm happy to provide updates where appropriate. So thank you again. Crazy time. Hope to be able to do this in person safely soon. But in the meantime, I wanted to turn it over to Dr. McKibben to see if he had anything he wanted to add.
No, that's good. I'll be here. Paula, as I recall, you're kind of double booked tonight, and you're going to be leaving in a little while, but
I'm going to stay as long as I can. I'm actually, technically, this is my first day off of work. And so one, I'm double booked, but two, I don't even know if I have good Wi-Fi where I'm at right now. But I am going to stay and participate for as much of the meeting as I can. Thanks for pointing that out, Dr. McKibben.
Thank you. Ms. Bassanelli, would you like to give a welcome and an update?
Hi, I'm Melissa Bassanelli. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for Schools and Student Support, and I'm just really happy to be here. And I'm not going to take away from too much of the presentation that you're about to have, but you're going to have a presentation by some really great staff regarding the work that we've been doing for the first half of the year. And so I'm looking forward to the discussion and the feedback. Thank you.
Great, thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Schnapp for staff report.
Thank you, Laura. I wanted to first of all start by introducing, I'm super excited. We haven't officially had the opportunity to introduce our new LCAP director, and so please at this time, let me introduce Dr. John Tornatore. And just a little background on John's experiences. He came to our district in 2016. Originally, though, he graduated from San Juan Unified School Districts prior to moving to New York, where he was I think he was a senior improvement specialist, John. And decided to return back to Sacramento to be closer to his parents. And so we're so glad that he returned. And so he was at Del Deo, and then he moved to Dyer Kelly as the principal. And now he will be assuming the role of our LCAP director. We're so happy to have his expertise around continuous improvement to help guide our work with the LCAP. So I would really love to turn it over to John, who can help lead our meeting tonight.
Kristen, thank you so much. So I just wanted to first let you know how excited I am to be joining the LCAP team. I love to create things with people and for people that are meaningful. And I think that the LCAP process is just that. It's a real creative, it's a real collaborative process that really does have the potential to impact a lot of students. In terms of our work together, I'm committed to living out the values that the LCAP PAC has set out that Heather is going to be sharing with us shortly, specifically around voice, access, and clarity. So around voice, about really lifting the voice of our community so that we can work in partnership with our various stakeholder groups. With access, one thing I've come to understand by attending some of the meetings here is that, the LCAP can be a barrier for many folks. And so one thing that I'm committed to is that we all work together to make it accessible for our community so people can be engaged in this process. And then finally, just around clarity about being clear about what our purpose and what our role here is as an advisory committee, specifically where our unique and important role and voice lies among the many advisory committees that we're engaging right now to create our LCAP. So with that, I just want to thank you all for welcoming me to the team. And I'm just going to turn it over here to Laura, because we have a packed agenda and I'm excited to be a part of this. So thank you all again.
Great, thanks, John. Okay, at this point in time, we have a section for visitor comments. I noticed that we have 4 visitors with us this evening. If you're a visitor and you'd like to make a public comment, feel free to click on your icon, your hand to speak. We'll call on you. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. And because of the rules that our PAC falls under, any comments you make, we are not able to reply to your comments, but we will certainly take note of them and get back to you. And with that, are there any visitors that would like to make a comment? Oh, okay. Well, with that, then we will go to our next item of business, and that is to take attendance. We usually do this by voice. I was able to capture all the members as you came into the room, but so I'm just going to make it easy. I'll read the members that I captured, and if I missed any of you, please feel free to let me know. So I have Amber, Damaris, Caroline, Stephanie, and Stephanie, is Elnora with you tonight?
Yes, and she's back and forth doing homework.
Okay, good girl, Elnora. Okay, Heather's here. We have Kim, Beth, Eric, Tom, Phyllis, Stephen, and actually I'd like to do a shout out to Stephen and have everybody welcome him. That tonight is his first meeting as an LCAP PAC member. There he is. Welcome, Stephen. We're happy to have you here. And then we have actually Jacqueline, correct? Okay.
Jacqueline, sorry.
Hi. Let me just do a quick count because I had a couple people that said they were going to be here and I marked them here. So let me make sure. I know we have quorum, but Tom, just give me a second. Okay, we have 13 PAC members here, so we do have quorum.
Well, that's great. Because let's see, are we ready to go on to the next agenda item? Which,
We are. We have the minutes. Tom, would you like to review those? Or ask?
Yeah, let's see, are you, let's see, can you screen share the agenda?
Go back to the agenda?
Yeah, go ahead and bring up the agenda, Ken.
Okay.
Kristen, you're
Laura?
on mute. Oh, there you go.
Oh, Laura, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh. There you go.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. Let's see, the agenda is one of the few action items we have on there. So I sent out the agenda ahead of time, and because we've got a packed meeting, I'm hoping that I can entertain a motion to approve the minutes, and that we can get through the couple of action items quickly and get on to the presentations. So is there any PAC member that would care to make a motion to approve the minutes? Go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up.
I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, Heather has made a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second to approve the minutes?
I'll second it, Stephanie.
Stephanie, okay, thank you. Okay, we've got a motion in a second. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Any corrections or?
I had a question.
Okay, go ahead.
There's something in there about when we were looking for Jean, who I'm happy to have. How do we? It says something about Heather was on the committee. I was just curious about that. Was it not Tom? Was it Heather?
Yeah, well, I can speak from, I guess, my perspective at one of the LCAPs. When we were doing the interview process, it was suggested that we have someone from the LCAP actually sit on the interview panel. And so I was asked to sit and I accepted. Anything beyond that, I don't know.
No. I was just making sure because it normally would have been the chair. That's why I was just making sure that was it. I didn't know who went, so.
Yeah, it was cool. I would say for myself to be able to kind of see what the process was and to participate. Yeah, I appreciated it.
Okay. Let's see, on the minutes, are any other comments, amendments to the minutes that anybody wants? If not, I'll go ahead and call for a vote to approve the minutes.
For add-on, Tom?
Yes?
For the next agenda item, do we add on for mental health? Do we do it now or later?
Later. For future agenda items, that will be later in our meeting when we ask for future agenda items.
Okay, cool.
So Laura, I think we're ready for a vote on the minutes.
Okay. Let me just do a quick roll call here. Amber, do you approve the minutes?
Yes.
Damaris?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Elnora?
Said here from the back room.
Okay, Stephanie?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes.
Phyllis?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
And Jacqueline?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, now we'll go on to committee business. Tom, would you like to go ahead and discuss the bylaws?
Yeah, the other item on the agenda that's an action item for us to vote on is approval of the revisions to the bylaws. We had a work group committee that looked at the revisions. We also submitted it to staff and to legal, and my understanding is the feedback we've gotten from from staff and legal is that they're all comfortable with the revisions to the bylaws. So I would like to entertain a motion at this time to approve the bylaws. Do I have a motion to do that?
I motion to approve. Kim.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, who is that?
Kim Brown.
Okay, thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
And do I have a second?
Phyllis will second.
Okay, thank you, Phyllis. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is any discussion? Okay, hearing no discussion, I would like to go ahead and call for a vote to approve the revision to the bylaws. Laura, should we go ahead and, are
Yes,
you ready?
yes, I'm sorry, I'm getting a weird thing on my computer. All right, so I will go down the list again. Amber. Do you approve the bylaws? Okay.
Yes, sorry, frantically unmuting.
That's okay. Damaris.
Yes.
Caroline.
Yes.
Elnora. Stephanie.
Yes. And she said yes.
Okay, thank you. Heather.
Yes.
Beth.
Yes.
Okay, and Kim, you already made the first, so I'm assuming you're approving. Eric.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Phyllis. Oh, she made the second. Stephen.
Yes.
Yes.
And Jacqueline.
Yes.
Great.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
And with
Go ahead, Laura.
Oh. Okay. With that, we will turn it over to Heather. She's going to introduce our LCAP PAC bylaws and help us complete a community building activity. So Heather, the floor is yours.
I thought I had unmuted myself, so hopefully everyone can hear me now. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, everyone. We were able to kind of meet now that we have a new LCAP PAC director and to regroup. And one of our first meetings, we took some time to really consider like, who are we as an LCAP PAC? Why are we here? And how do we stay laser focused on building community and leaning in and leading through those values, and even what are they? And so we did spend a good amount of time actually just kind of sharing historically some of the LCAP culture, right? And visioning about how we can foster and build that moving forward. And so we did some brainstorming and found some common themes that we wanted to make sure that we brought to you all today to take a look at and to give some input on. Of course, unfortunately, with time being of concern, there's not too much time for the process and back and forth, but I want to make sure that everyone knows that this is a living document, that this document belongs to all of us, and this is a collective, value and norm. And so as you all have input, feel free at any point to, shoot us emails or, hopefully at some point some will resonate with you and you will have some time to share that. And so our core values, we got to the point where voice, as was mentioned earlier today, that we want to lift the voice of our community and that people want to feel heard and see their investments, right? There we go. Thank you.
Can you see it okay, Heather?
I can, but it's moving. There we go. There we go. Okay, perfect. And so one of our other core values is access. And so I love that it was acknowledged that even the structure of LCAP can be a barrier, and that we're going to do our best to continue to mitigate those barriers and make it accessible. Clarity, that our value is to be clear about our purpose and the role that we have collectively as an advisory committee. The norms for our collaboration is to be clear and build capacity. And by this, of course, it means to be clear and consistent with our process, expectations, and our roles, to grow the PAC's knowledge and confidence in the LCAP, to use data, share resources, and provide training to our new members, to build trust. We hit home on that a little bit. Is it possible to move that that screen a little bit up? There we go. Thank you. And by trust, we thought it was really important to break that down a little bit as well, right? Like, what does that look like and how do we approach that? To communicate thoughtfully, often, and with care, to collaborate around shared goals with school board that's aligned with district priorities, engage in activities that allow us to get to know each other, to innovate and lean into discomfort. And so that that's broken down by focusing on equity of language and application. Can we move the screen up a little bit more, please? Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, my bad.
No, you're all right. You're wonderful. To seek to understand different perspectives, to be flexible and function with urgency, but not perfection. And then the we, not me concept, which is really focusing on our collective responsibility to our school communities rather than personal agendas. To approach our work with institutional humility by focusing on connecting with our community. I think the last word is family. Community family.
Here, let me slide it over. There we go.
Okay. Family and students. It would be amazing if I had it memorized already, but I
tried
don't.
to zoom in a little bit, but
no,
That'll be
thank
too
you so
much.
much.
Laura, it might help if you use present mode, then you'll have the full slide.
There we go.
Perfect. Beautiful. And so that was a lot. And of course, that was only some of our PAC that was represented in some of that initial visioning. And so we wanted to take some time to, roll this out and hear from you all and to see if any of these values or principles and norms resonated with any of you.
So if you'd like to come off of mute to discuss a norm or value that resonates with you, that would be great.
Actually, a couple of them actually resonate, and probably the strongest one for norms for me is build trust and to engage in activities that allow us to get to know each other. I find that we talk about social emotional learning and the importance of that, and one thing I have learned over the years being part of LCAP and understanding our youth that is typically at risk, it's frequently the social emotional lack of support or trauma that students have experienced or are experiencing that undermines their ability to have academic learning. So that getting to know each other, for students to know each other, know their teachers, have those sorts of connections, it provides a foundation of social emotional support. And that foundation I find is critical for the academic growth of students. And that's why I also note in our LCAP that student engagement is a foundation and parent engagement is a foundation that supports the student achievement priority in the state priorities. So that's how it really resonated with me. So other LCAP members?
Feel free to come off mute.
I'll just say real quick, this is Eric. One of the things that jumped out at me was the we, not me section. Just because at times we can be myopic, focused on our own children, or especially as a parent, or the school that our children go to, but looking at the district as a whole and learning more about the district as a whole. and people from different groups. And I think that really connects to, most of the values, but that just really resonated with me. So thanks for setting up this forum. It's really cool.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Amber. I'll jump in too. I think something that resonates for me is wanting to make sure one of our core values is access, and how we talk about access as an issue of equity, quoting Heather. I like what we have around innovate and lean into discomfort, and really making sure that we're being explicit about what that means. I think language is so important, and so I like that we're taking a look at that and wanting to be mindful about that as we move forward.
Thanks, Am. All right.
This is Caroline, and I have a student at Meraki and at Del Campo. And I really resonated just with that bullet about being clear and building capacity. I think I've often told others of you on this call that I'm a proud bureaucrat, because I believe in the power of bureaucracy to help people really live a better life. So to me, just coming into this process and learning all about the LCFF and what is the LPAC, all of that was really critical to being able to engage and look at the data in a way to really look at it district-wide.
Thank you. I wanted to emphasize the equity component because it's important for us to not only use words about, justice and access and equity, but LCAP is really an opportunity to operationalize those components. And at times, there can be a back and forth about, of course, we want to serve all students. And also, we're focusing on our students that are unduplicated and that shouldn't get lost in the conversations. And by reaching those students and by making sure that, our schools and our service supports are equitable, we are really servicing all students, if that makes sense. And so the concept of equity and being unapologetic about centering that in these conversations and as we're making decisions is really important.
Thank you, Heather. Are there any last comments? We're actually doing great time-wise. If someone would like to make a last comment, feel free
Laura,
to come off mute.
This is Stephanie. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so I want to emphasize on voice, because back in February, when we broke up in groups, when we were seeing I think our last in-person meeting, and when Lisa was with us, voice, we broke down voice as a group, and so I want to emphasize on that one. So for V is for vision, O is for opportunity, I is for inspire, and C is for communication, and E is for engagement or equity. So I want to emphasize on breaking that one down tonight.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, one last chance. Anybody else would like to share before we move on?
I was going to add, I'm not an LCAP member. This is Jamal Hicks, and but just being this first part is very soothing. And I really just want to echo just the previous one about voice. I think just lifting the voice of the community is just so important. Just I don't mean to take up too much time though, but just when you give our community voice, it's just uplifting. In the sense, and this is a crazy metaphor that I'm really going to talk about, and Carissa's there, she will stop me. But I just when I was younger, I used to watch a lot of crazy shows like Jerry Springer and all these other shows. And I was always wondering why there were always these marginalized people up there, but really they just wanted to have a voice. When you watch those shows, and this is just I just really like the direction that the district is going, and just really going to our community and listening to their voice and just letting them know that they are important. And I'm sorry if that kind of metaphor went kind of crazy, but what I wanted to say after that, I used to get upset, like, why would you go on a show and talk like this? But the whole point is they want to be heard. That's really the whole point. I would get upset at the network, like, why are you exploiting these people? That's a whole nother topic. But I just really just wanted to say, like, hey, this is really a nice place and a very soothing place. And this would have saved me a lot of stress throughout my life if I went to more meetings like this where we could just have our voice heard. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you,
Wow.
Mr. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Hicks. Really appreciate that. Mr. Hicks will be sharing shortly as well. With that, I'm going to stop the share, and we have Ms. Schnepp and Ms. Green here with us this evening to provide us a presentation on student attendance. So with that, stop.
And is Susan with us, Laura?
Yes, she is. She is.
Okay, good. Hi, Susan. I didn't see you there.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. We have a lot of, okay, let me pull up our. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to start the. All right. So I want to say good evening to everybody. I'm going to share with you guys a presentation that we shared with the board on Tuesday. Ms. Bassinelli and our directors and our assistant superintendents were available to share some of the work that's being done. And tonight, Susan and I are going to also share with you what work has been done around continuous improvement. So tonight, we'll be sharing a mid-year learning status report that's regarding student academic progress and the actions the district has taken to provide a responsive system of support. With me tonight, I'm going to have Susan Green, who's going to share some of the data that we've used. And then also I will have Jamal Hicks share some of the more granular work that's happening on our West End. And he can really talk about how he was able to gather student voice. And I really appreciated what he said around, really the power of voice and wanting to feel heard. And so we'll dig into that a little bit in our presentation tonight. And so I really appreciated seeing that in our norms, because I think you're going to see a through line in some of the work we're doing. Our work is anchored in this slide around continuous improvement. And it's the process that we use to elevate voice from those closest to the work. We do this by listening and learning, collaborating and responding. And so this is kind of a slide that grounds us as we begin to do the hard work of looking at our system and seeing what improvements need to be made. Inside our continuous improvement work is the discipline cycle of inquiry, more commonly known as a PDSA cycle, which stands for plan, do, study, and act. And it's really the core of what we've been doing this year. When we're in the planning phase of the cycle, we plan the test, including identifying the goal and the idea that we want to test. Within this portion of the cycle, we ask questions, things like, what are we trying to accomplish? And what questions are we asking? In the do phase of the cycle, we implement the plan, and we try to do this on small scales. We don't do huge actions. We're trying to do small things that are easily tested. We document problems and unexpected observations. We collect data along the way, and then we move into the study phase of the cycle. And this is where we analyze results. We compare some of our results with the predictions that we had, and we really reflect on what we have learned. And then we go to the act phase. And this is where we either adopt some of these practices, we adapt, abandon if things aren't working, and then we start the cycle again. So we are in this, and because of the pandemic, it is like we're moving at such a quick pace because of the pandemic. Everything, one day is, many changes can happen. So when you see this improve quickly, everything is moving so quickly. And the key focus for this slide that I appreciate is that failures may occur is not the problem, that we fail to learn from them is. So it's really about looking at our system and being able to engage in processes. in the fall, we decided that we needed to have some work groups to really study what was happening in our system, to plan and to take some actions. So we created work groups that were based on our key needs, and they included learning loss, safety nets, parent support, stakeholder engagement, teacher staff support, and professional development. So we had leaders engaging in each of these groups, and they were able to work together and go out and listen to families to help build some of our plans. Also, we moved into, this is our do stage, where you can see some of the initial actions when we came back in the fall were based on things like creating safety nets around data collection, home visits to connect families with, to connect schools with families who were not attending, school to home connections are just a few of the things. So we had some quick, immediate actions that we started to take. We're now going to talk about another portion of the study, which is some of our data that we have used in addressing some of our actions. So I'm going to now turn it over to Susan Green, who's going to talk us through some of our data slides.
Thank you, Kristen. And as we started to look at our data, one of the first questions we asked ourselves is, what data do we have available that could start to tell our story? And so the first piece that we looked at was attendance. Now, before I start on attendance, I will say that the data that we're looking at this year means something slightly different than last year. Because this year, because of the new, the one bill that was the legislative change, students are counted as attended, whether they attend the synchronous or asynchronous time, or if they're turning in an assignment, or they are in contact with teachers. So it's a little different than in years past. When we looked at students, we broke them into 5 categories. We break them into, and you'll see that on the right-hand side of your slide. Red is extreme chronic absenteeism. Orange is chronic absenteeism. Yellow is at risk. Green is good attendance, and blue is perfect attendance. It is important to note here that daily attendance for elementary is used for elementary and K-8 schools, and period attendance is used for middle schools and high schools. The top set of bars represents the data from the 2021 school year up until the end of December, and the bottom bar represents the same time frame for last year. And what you will notice when you look at the 2 bars is that there is about 4.9% or 4.6% more students in the chronically absent category, which is the red and orange this year than last year. But also there's about 5.9% more students in the good or perfect attendance, which is a blue and green bar. So that doesn't tell us a lot. So we drilled down, if you can move slides. Kristen, who has, there you go. We drilled it down into school type to see if we could see something, it tells us any more to the story. The left-hand set of bar or graph is from the 2019 to 2020 data, with high school being the top bar and elementary grades being the bottom bar. And then the right-hand side is the 2021 data. In elementary, what we noticed is we have about 10% more students this year that are in the good or perfect attendance category compared to last year. So that blue and green bars have increased this year. Whereas all the other school types, so that includes middle school, middle grades at K-8 and high school, all have between 5 to 7% more students in the chronically absent band. After we looked at attendance, we wanted to drill down into grades to find out what we're talking about. I will tell you that before I start this data, our data that we're showing you today on grades is what we are seeing similarly across the state. There's been articles written about San Diego and some other districts, and it's basically matching what we're seeing. So let's start with high school and kind of talk you through this. The left-hand bar graph is Q1. So what students did up until the beginning of the year until about October. And then the right-hand side graph is semester 1. So those are the grades that they got from October through the end of December. The orange bar is what happened last year, if I look at this time frame last year, and the gray bar is what's happened this year during the time frame. We put kids into 4 different categories. We looked at all their grades and we said, how many of them have 0 Fs? How many have 1 F? How many had 2 to 3 Fs? And how many had 4 or more Fs? I will remind you that this data is both block and traditional together. So some students have could have 4 classes and some students could have up to 6 to 7 classes. For this year, what we saw was about a 5% increase of students with 0 Fs from quarter 1 to semester 1. That's the gray bars. And there was no change with students with 4 or more Fs between the 2 time periods. And this is really similar to what we've seen in past years. If we look at semester 1 this year compared to last year, so just concentrating on that right-hand side, what we notice is we have about 9% fewer students with 0 Fs, and we have 7% more students with 4 or more Fs. So definitely, when we compare that time frame, we're seeing some drops from last year. In the appendix that you received, you also got data, this same data for English learners, low-income students, students with disabilities, and foster or homeless students. And for high school, all groups have more students with 4 or more Fs this year compared to last year at semester 1. And English learners had the highest difference with 21% more students in the 4 or more F level. For middle school students, the same graphs are presented. For this year, there was about a 5% drop of students with 0 Fs from quarter 1 to quarter 2. And again, this drop is similar to what we saw last year. And if we look at the right-hand side of the graph, which is quarter 2 this year compared to last year, 12% more students have 4 or more Fs, and 13% fewer students have 0 Fs. So again, that shift. For the groups. What? Okay. For the groups in the appendix, the larger difference was for the English learners, again, at 24% more. And foster or homeless students also had a large difference with 27% more with 4 or more Fs. For elementary students and middle grades at K-8 sites, we only have one data point, which is trimester 1 as of now. So the left-hand graph is the middle grades at K-8 at trimester 1, and the right-hand side graph is elementary grades at trimester 1. And again, the orange bar is last year and the gray bar is this year. For middle grades at K-8, we have about 8% more students with 4 or more Fs. And for elementary school, it is important to remember we're actually not looking at Fs here. We're looking at the number of 1s a student received on the standards-based report card. And again, we had about 7% more students with 4 or more 1s compared to last year. So that tells us one story, but we asked one other question, which was how do grades intersect with attendance? And do we see anything that might tell us a little bit more of the picture? And in order to do this, we actually took for each term, we looked at the students' attendance for that term and then their grades for that term and tried to determine what we would see. So this graph or this slide shows you middle school and high school. High school on the top set of graphs and middle school on the bottom set. The left-hand side graph is all the students who are in the chronically absent category and then how they did on grades. The middle graphs are all the kids in the at-risk category and how they did on grades. And then the right-hand side graph is all the kids with good attendance and how they did on grades. Within the graph, the top bar is the quarter 1 results for this year, and the bottom graph is the semester 1 results from this year. For high school, what you notice is when you look at that chronically absent graph, we have about 20% students with no Fs, which is a slight decrease in semester 1. And we ended up with about 40% of those students with 4 or more Fs. And that's a slight increase in semester 1 from quarter 1. When I look at the at-risk group, that's the middle band, what we see is about a 4% swing, 4% fewer students with 0 and 4% more students with 4 or more when I compare quarter 1 to quarter 2. For the good or excellent attendance, that's the right-hand side of the graph, we basically did not see a change between quarter 1 and quarter 2. And overall, we have about 80% of those students with 0 Fs. Middle school, which is the bottom row, the picture is similar to high school, but a little different. The chronically absent students, 55% of them have 4 or more Fs in quarter 2, which was a 15% increase from quarter 1. The at-risk students, we saw about a 9% swing, 9% fewer with 0 Fs and 9% more with 4 or more Fs. And we did not see any change really, again, with that good or excellent attendance group. Again, when we look at, on the next slide, when we look at middle grades at K-8 and elementary, there's only one bar because there's only one time period, which is trimester 1. The top set of bars are the middle grades at K-8 and the bottom set are elementary. When you look at the middle school at K-8, the chronically absent students again had about 50% with 4 or more Fs and 10% with 0 Fs. The at-risk students had 20% with 0 Fs and 30% with 4 or more Fs. And the good or excellent attendance group had about 65% of their students with no Fs. In elementary, the picture is very similar. Chronically absent students, 55% had 4 or more Fs. The at-risk students, there was about 38% with 4 or more Fs and 30% with 0 Fs. And again, the good or excellent attendance group, about 68% has 0 Fs, or had 0 1, sorry, I said that wrong. So really, what did we find when we looked at this? The one group that I think we saw some insights into it that were maybe what we expected, but help tell the story is the students who are at risk for chronic absenteeism. So remember, those are the students who are absent between 5 and 10% of the days or periods that they are enrolled. And what we saw is anywhere between 13 and 39% of them have 4 or more Fs or 1s on the report card. And in terms of middle school and high school, where we have data points, the two data points in the year, we've seen an increase in both of those groups this year in terms of 4 or more Fs. We also note that middle school had a high number of 4 or more Fs at 56%. That was important to call out, as well as English learners across the board. It didn't matter what attendance level or school type we saw. They had between 4 and 26% more students that with 4 or more Fs this year. So that was a high concern that we had.
Well, thank you, Susan. So in addition to to studying the quantitative data, we gathered and studied qualitative data as well. We wanted to hear from students. What were the struggles? What's working? What are the barriers? And so one of the ideas we came up with was to interview students and really hear their voice. And so I'd like to share this video with you from a variety of students and some of the ideas they have around distance learning.
Oh, let's see. We're not hearing the sound.
The sound.
Can you hear it?
Mm-mm.
Whoever's sharing, make sure under video, you could check that the
audio box.
The audio box.
It was on, we tested it earlier.
Huh.
Every time you share a video, the next time you still have to check the audio box if there's a video. So you'll probably have to stop share and then reshare.
Okay.
And you'll see a little tiny audio box in the lower corner that has to have a check mark in it.
Nicole, are you co-host? Can you jump on this and see if...
I'm not, but I also...
I am right now, Nicole.
Okay, because I don't see that. But I've got stuff at the bottom blocking my...
Okay.
I'm sorry, you guys.
No, it's okay.
We tested this and it was working.
What's blocking? So when you click your share screen, the green share screen button.
Okay, I see. Share sound.
Yes.
Okay, do I need to hit the optimize for video clip?
Since you have a video clip, go ahead.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Now I can go back to my... Okay, thank goodness Nicole Naditz is here. Now it says, do I need to enable media or block media?
Oh, that's new. I guess enable media.
Okay.
Not sure that's new. I'm not sure.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Let's
Camera and that's
do you hear it?
Do your assignment.
Yes.
Yes. Very lunge.
Yay, let me start over.
Yay.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for being patient.
It's a lot easier to ask for help than having to like go up in person. You can just email them easily.
Like preparing for school is a lot easier now since it's right here at my home.
The organization's a lot easier, as well as like the timing. Some people work better at different times of the day.
It's the teachers, they explain things.
It's pretty easy. It's not complicated at all. You just have to turn on your camera and that's it. Do your assignments.
During lunch, I can just go ride my bike to Twin Lakes, wave at the school.
Just like talking with your teachers. That's what I feel like is the best part about online school.
I was actually doing better in some of my classes because when I was in person, I was kind of like messing around. And now that I'm in like distant learning, I just like try to focus because none of my friends are in the background messing around.
It's really easy for me to spend a little bit more time with my family.
The little Wi-Fi boxes, it will like be working, then it will just shut down, and then it will work again.
For the first semester, it was pretty difficult, but for the second semester, I feel more positive about it.
In general, just the social aspect, just talking to people. It's something that you really don't consider to be like really special until you just don't have it.
Yeah, it is more stressful because you have to be with everyone and everyone is looking at you. You have to answer to the teacher.
Like the technology, because sometimes the computers don't work.
And it's usually the distractions at your house that keep you from not focusing on your work.
I feel like it's hard to teach on Zooms for the teachers.
I'm struggling with like keeping up with work and having motivation to pretty much do it.
Oh, I don't have enough time to do all of it, and so you're just picking and choosing. And I really don't think that's exactly a good thing to pick and choose work. I think you should do all of it. So it's just been going really fast paced and I can't really stay up.
If you interrupt the teacher, like you're gonna like mess up the whole class flow and stuff.
I've always been more of a visual learner, and the distance learning just doesn't help me at all.
One, I'm transferring to a whole entire new district, so I don't know anyone, and normally like at this time I would be in like band.
There's just something missing from distance learning, but you get that in in-person learning.
Don't like that we can't have hands-on learning.
I'm better than what I can do at school than on a computer, and my grades are not showing that.
I enjoy using tech. Doing online school, I feel like it's more engaging for me.
I would like to go back to school.
But like half the time I really don't want to go to school, but I'd rather go to school if it was in person.
School, it's one of my favorite things in the whole entire world.
I love going to school. I love being with my friends.
School isn't really what it used to be. To me, it feels more like a chore.
I know everybody at Mesa wants us students to thrive, and I really love that.
I've been like on the GPA board all 4 years, and I don't want to like just throw that away. So I want to keep up my grades, make it to the finish line without giving up towards the end.
Whoops. Okay. So in addition to student voice, we also were really interested in finding and listening to our parent voice as well. So the parent voice has also been gathered, and we've created some themes. This occurs at the site level through site council and various parent stakeholder meetings. And at the system level, various stakeholder groups are being engaged in discussion around learning loss. This slide shares with you some of the themes that we've lifted from the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Committee. And this meeting occurred in January. And some of the big themes that we heard centered around first, materials pickup. At our school sites, at our school sites, we found that students love the opportunity to be able to come to the school and just find that connection, and it created more community and opportunity for students to just be at their school sites. We also learned that relationships really matter, both in and out of the classroom, whether we're in distance learning or in person. Students, they're missing their teachers, they're missing their friends. And as we transition into a hybrid learning, We want to consider ways that we can leverage student relationships and connections to really continue the work that we've started around that. And then also we've learned that learning needs to be fun. So any summer learning opportunities should include student voice and choice, innovation, and they should include enrichment so that students have that opportunity to have some social interaction as well as academic recovery. So there's a lot to consider that from the parent voice as well. So each of the divisions also started to go to dig deeper with the qualitative and that quantitative data that we received. So I'm going to start with some information from high school, and then we'll work through the divisions. So from the initial fall implementation for high school, the division learned that student attendance and engagement is a struggle, and that students are not attending additional supports provided by practitioners. So when we were offering tutoring and other supports, students weren't attending. And then they weren't necessarily completing assigned work, and they weren't doing it at the normal rates. And so we had questions around that as well. And then we also discovered a lot of social and emotional challenges as a result of the lack of that social interaction that they were not able to engage in. So this really led high school groups to ask some questions. And so I'm going to just highlight a few of the questions. How can we uncover what motivates our students? Throughout this, you're going to really hear a lot about motivation and engagement. And so they wanted to know, what is the core around motivation? And then what role does a practitioner play, and how can we support student motivation? And then what are the barriers that exist that are preventing students? I think oftentimes we come with some assumptions, but until we hear from our students, those assumptions are just that, and we need to hear from them so we know what our next step should be. So high school division decided to do a survey. And so all 9 comprehensive schools provided a short survey to a small group of students to gather some information. And the questions were really focused on academic services, student motivation, and work completion. And within that, we had over 1,000 students participate, and we had students with disabilities and also English language learners participate in the survey so that we were able to get some pretty interesting information. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the areas that we got information around. Again, motivation is key in many of our areas that we were digging into. One question was, how motivated are you during distance learning? And one of the things that really popped out was students said 67%, I want to pass my class. Like, I care and I want to pass. But they also enjoyed working at their own pace and having flexibility within that. And then they also said they're most successful and they're most motivated when they're really interested in the subject matter. So there was that connection as well. We also looked at, why are students not motivated? And 2 of the areas that really popped out were, I miss my friends and I miss social interactions. And then a second one that we heard throughout all of the divisions was, I am overwhelmed. And you can see that within this, those are 2 of the most interesting and highly looked at for why they're not motivated. Another thing we looked at was what are the reasons why students aren't doing all of their assignments? Because we're seeing students not turning in work as they had done in the past. Things that students called out were they're overwhelmed with too many due dates, there's too many emails, and it's difficult to find assignments and then find the directions that go with those assignments. 33% of the students said they were unable to keep up with the amount of the assignments and with the amount of work that was being provided. And then we also had a large group of students say that the assignments were difficult. And so not having always that interaction with the teacher also created more of a struggle. And then when asked if they had attended academic supports, you can see the blue, 30% said they were not aware. Some of them said they hadn't attended, but they were aware. And so we were trying to figure out why, if students are aware and are struggling, why aren't they getting those supports? So barriers to attending additional supports came up. You can see to the left, I'm not aware of the services and I have not been told about them. So that helped us look at, okay, communication, how are students learning about some of those opportunities. And then also students were very honest and said their own motivation, that some of them were already doing so much school, they didn't want to do more school by attending tutoring. And so they were tired. So how they adjusted and looking at high school, they really had 4 areas that they were looking at, and that was strength in communication and relationships, student motivation, work completion, and academic support services. So for high school, these were some of the areas that they're adjusting. And I'm just going to call out a few. Under strengthen communication and relationships, they want to customize communication to be culturally relevant. So making sure that they're listening to their communities to find out what are the ways that you prefer to be communicated. In doing this, many of the schools found out, especially the students, are saying, I don't want an email, please text me. And even some of the families were saying, I don't want phone calls, just text us and give us as quick of a synopsis as you can. So they're getting that feedback from their communities. And then under student motivation, one of the areas they said was create opportunities for students to be socially engaged with their peers, either outside or inside of those virtual classrooms, but just the more ways that we can have students connect. And then work completion, they want to support practitioner implementation of those essential standards so that teachers don't feel like they have to do everything, but they can really hone in on those essential standards that kids need as building blocks. And then also to continue strengthening our support services. We know our students need supports. We need to customize them. So we are really addressing their needs and doing it in a way that's more beneficial for them. So even talking about some twilight classes and tutoring, maybe using Wednesdays differently. So just trying to be creative and innovative as we address the needs. Moving to middle school, the lessons that they learned from their initial implementation was that they said they took an everyone is a detective approach. We connected with every family to welcome them back and identify known barriers and concerns. The things they were really focusing on in the fall were around assumptions. So they said we made some assumptions about the barriers and the challenges, and instead they needed to work on personalizing responses rather than doing like blanket approaches, really trying to customize and support where student and different community barriers were. So some of the questions they asked were, which specific students are struggling and which specific students miss school today? And then they drilled down a little bit deeper with that, with why, who can be deployed to help. And so they really had a pretty comprehensive plan with support. The themes that emerged from their detective work were around motivation, feelings of isolation in middle school specifically, and the K-8 grades, 6-8 grades in the K-8s, sense of loss of related to those existing relationships, and then the importance of fun. They kept hearing over and over again that they wanted things to be fun. So if you look at the blue circle in the middle, we discovered we needed to ask additional questions. And so they really wanted to hear the lived experiences of their students and then build those support services based on the feedback they were getting from their students. So some of the things that they learned were that relationships mattered. And then they had some quotes in here, which I really appreciated. Everyone's trying to build relationships via Zoom, and it's hard. And then they also said, and many students said this over and over again, my teachers are trying so hard. And the kids see how hard the teachers are working to build those connections. And they commented on, yeah, our teachers beg us to turn our cameras on. And so they see that the teachers are trying. We also see that isolation is tough. Our students thrive on being connected. And so some of the students said, my COVID bubble, the people that I'm allowed to spend time with, it's too tight. And I miss having more friends and more students to connect with. And then middle school students and those 6-8 students at the K-8s also said it's hard to stay motivated. So one of the quotes was, I'll be able to pass my classes when school opens. So they're just kind of saying, I'll wait until we get back in school to get my grades back up. And then the middle school students specifically just kept saying, I miss all the cool stuff that was happening. Lots of clubs, lots of ways for students to connect, and they're missing that. So how they adjusted at the middle school level was to start offering more check-ins. And so if you look under relationship matters, they want to expand communication modes to include more social media, more texting, individual breakout rooms for teachers and students so they can have more time to talk. For the theme under isolation is tough, they're going to start Zoom game rooms like bingo, just things where kids can come and have a little playtime. They're going to refocus their energy on care, solace, referrals, and making sure that they're identifying those students that have been, that teachers or staff have noticed. And then under staying motivated is hard, revision to course pacing and grading practices similar to high school, and then personalized technology troubleshooting so that the students really continue to have the support they need with the technology struggles. And then for keeping it fun, you can see there's just a ton of ideas that they are now generating around Zoom dances, Zoom rallies, spirit weeks and assemblies, even workouts, things that they can do online to continue to have those connections. For elementary, they had an all hands on deck approach as they started their fall implementation. And the division learned from the fall implementation that students were struggling with attendance. They were struggling with making meaningful connection with peers. There was inconsistency with technology, and that also students were struggling with being able to complete assignments. So some of the questions elementary asked were, what are the barriers to students' consistent attendance? How can we support students making connections with their peers? And then what are the continuing barriers and how can we support students, especially around assignment? So those were some of their leading questions that they started with. So what they learned in looking at their key themes around attendance and consistencies, the students were missing connections with their peers. So you can see this ongoing theme emerge from all the divisions. They saw inconsistent adult availability to support young learners. We learned parents, especially with our younger students, parents are working. And so they're struggling and the tension of being able to work and then help their students with classwork. It's a challenge for our families. And our English language learners, they're attending their ELD classes, but not necessarily their content classes. And so they wanted to learn more about that. Under making connections, missing personal connections. So Zoom is not the same as playing in person. And they want more one-on-one time with teachers. For technology, again, inconsistent adult availability to support young learners. So helping them log on and use passwords. And then for assignment completion, students choosing between synchronous or asynchronous work completion. And then students being unable to complete all the assignments in the day because it's just the workload was getting too much. How they adjusted. So building, the elementary group decided to look at some of the ideas around attendance inconsistencies. And one of the things they looked at was building incentives for attendance that leverage meaningful connection with peers. So how can we get kids to want to be there and then find ways to get them to connect? And how can we increase parent education, communication, and ideas for supporting young learners at home? So being able to help the students and the families as well. Making connections. So again, it's trying to find ways to be creative and innovative. So facilitate more virtual connections around class recesses, lunches, and games, just different opportunities for that connection. For technology, staff on campus serving as technology liaisons, and then also providing additional time for reteaching lessons that are missed because of technology issues. So making sure if students miss something, they were able to re-engage with it. And then around assignment completion, additional opportunities for students to support, including tutoring, small group intervention. So looking at ways to support students in a different venue. So those are some of the ways that our elementary group looked at making some adjustments. So we kind of went through the PDSA cycle with the different divisions, what they started with, what they studied and learned, and then how they adapted. Now what we're going to do is take a granular look at one of the programs from our West End, and it was based on a grant that Mr. Hicks was involved with. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Hicks, and you just tell me when to,
excuse me. Yeah, we've got some questions from PAC members. So before we, and since this is a discussion item, I want to make sure that we have time for members of the committee to ask questions and enter into discussion.
Tom, this is Laura. We do have time built in after the presentation, and I just put in the chat box that that we'll get to the questions after. Is that acceptable, or is that acceptable to everybody?
Let's see. Well, I'll see. Is there any PAC members that have questions on what Kristen has presented so far before we go to another speaker?
This is part of the presentation, so it might be easier if we were able to just finish this real quick, and then we can open it up for discussion on anything that's presented.
Okay.
If you guys are okay, if you're okay with that.
All right, sure. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, hi, good evening. Thank you, Kristen. Again, my name is Jamal Hicks. I'm the VP at Thomas Edison, and just actually how this evolved. I mean, and really, and I hope I don't really speak too much. I just have to really share just how much, really my first word I want to talk about is partnership. I never really realized how important partnerships are. And what I mean by that is partnerships are so important. It's really changed my outlook on really even how I identify myself. And what I mean by that is if I took the 2020 census right now, I would normally bubble in the word black man. Probably now I would put brother. And I was saying this to actually Clarissa. I was telling Clarissa, we talk like this. This is how we talk when we work. And I go, Clarissa, I'm a brother first, a black man second. And she finally had the courage. What is this guy talking about? And so I just had to really tell her what that meant. I go, we have to look out for each other. This is what this is all about. And I really just started getting all this stuff just with the COVID happened and just how we just start looking after each other. I want to just give the very quick example. We just had a family at Thomas Edison. So instead of going on summer vacation, they used that summer vacation money to, they just donated to the school, so that we can buy gift cards. And just with everything, just with all the social fighting that we've been actually doing over the summer. And when I went just seeing everyone just kind of going for one cause, I just really just kind of just changed what I'm all about. And it really is about partnerships. And I'm sorry if I just ad-libbed too long on that, but I just really want to, I'm loving the direction the district is going and seeking partnerships and seeking togetherness and seeking that, hey, this is what we're all about. So again, in partnership with Sacramento Republic and from the guidance of Kate Kazarian at Greer, a grant was awarded for Micron. The purpose of this grant was to close gaps from underserved students. The team met and they discussed the best way that we can use the money to support our students. Initially, they really wanted to buy computers, more Zoom in, more headphones. And we wanted to really delve more deeper into that. So we decided really to empathy gather with our families so that we can identify what are the best needs for this grant. And so from the collaboration, we found those voices are missing. And when we really started listening to those voices, the grant just went in just completely different directions. So we're not just buying like this one we're just putting in the chat box. I mean, they're not needing more Zoom. I mean, they're not needing more. We got the Chromebooks. And so Nina Mancina got on board, and I worked with Nina Mancina back in the day at Jonas Salk. And one of the things we did was we did a program called Gen Yes. Tech Yes. And really what Gen Yes is about is you teach the kids the technology because the kids know it. The kids, that's all what they're playing with. And then you teach the kids the technology and they can bring it to the teachers. And that really changed kind of my outlook on how I was, because I was a technology teacher at the time at Jonas Salk. And what I equate myself to was I was the person, if they're playing the video games, I was the boss. I was the person that was getting in their way. And really what Gen Yes and Tech Yes, and hopefully what this grant's going to do, and I don't want to take anything from this, is we want to give them the cheat codes, right? We want to show these teachers the cheat codes so how we can engage our students. How do we engage our families? Let's get the cheat codes. Let's not be barriers to them. So anyway, really what this really turned into was this is really how community voice, leadership, which we have at San Juan, leadership is committed to serving all its stakeholders. And so this is really kind of how it started. So again, the purpose of West is we really want to accelerate learning by supporting our families academically and technologically with equipment, trainings, tools to excel in distance learning and beyond. And just a little taste of what, quick little snippet of what West is about. Thank you for that. And again, just some, I always like to just start out with, this is really a brand new job, right? For our families, our students, our teachers, everyone. And just, Kristen, you just kind of just really illustrated this before, just about the Zoom and the sound. How uncomfortable, you know what I mean? How do we, how do we get the sound? So at times, and it's happened to me, it happens to me all the time, just when I'm just using technology, when you don't feel confident, when you don't feel comfortable, you're not confident, those are barriers. And so really, again, my whole thing is really, this is really what West is about. We want to provide that technological support and make our equipment accessible to our families. Perhaps we can even, this will accelerate our student learning. And again, talking about just from the West End, language and transportation is just a huge barrier on the West End side of our district. I did a porch visit at a family right by Arden Fair Mall. And I remember the teacher was upset because the student wasn't wasn't uploading a photo to her Google Classroom. This was a kindergartner, right? A kindergartner her native language was Spanish. And so the teacher was marking them absent. I called, and just to think how frustrating it is for some of our families to get that call from the principal, you're not getting online, and so I just really just started to think about from that point of view, because the students, when I went to the house and I spoke Spanish to them, they want to do the work, right? They want to upload the photos, they want to, they want to be successful, they want to do this stuff, but just uploading a photo for a kinder or just whatever grade, even my age, I have a tough time uploading photos. So I'm not going to make the phone call, but anyway, going to this next slide right here, these are the schools that we are really going to be focusing our West services on. And what I mean by services, they're going to have access to our walk-in lab. They'll have, we just have a brand new mobile unit. Peter brought it by yesterday, and I was just completely amazed with this. They're going to have hub support, and then they'll be able to make an appointment with us. And then what's so nice about that appointment is it could be in their language. And on the next slide right there, again, these are other schools who will be getting they're getting the same support, but they're not going to actually, they're getting the same support, but they're just not going to have the actually hub support. And really kind of what was happening with me is we really wanted to start small, really get that good foundation where we can grow. And so that's really the purpose. We're not going to get the access to the distance learning hub. If we can go to the next slide, please.
Oh, excuse me.
Yes.
Let's see, we're at 7:20. Our next agenda item is supposed to start at 7:20. So can you, wrap it up here in a minute or two, please?
Yes. So again, this is how we plan on doing it. Just the walk-in support lab, phone support, mobile unit. We're going to have a web-based distance learning hub, and then there's going to be an app. If we can go to the next slide, though, please. The staff is just right there. You can just I really think I just want to highlight what the staff is. Look at that, we're using our high school students. And that's when we Zoom with the high school students, they've just been telling me, man, Mr. Hicks, I wish we can just help our teachers out. That's what they're saying. Can we help out our teachers? And so really, we wanted to include them in our discussion. If we can go to the next slide. the components of the West, for Tuesday, Thursday, 9 to 5. Well, the mobile unit would be out Tuesday through Thursdays, 11 to 1. If we can go to the next slide. Just a very quick glimpse of the actual hub that's going to be available on the portal. It's going to have a tile right there. They'll just click on the tile, and from there they'll have access to the Zooms, distance learning support, parent resources, and student resources. If we can go to the next slide. Again, there's a schedule right there. I'll go more later, the support ticket. If we can go to the next slide though, please. And I'm just very appreciative of our donors for making this grant accessible. We can go to the next slide. We will be able to track and analyze from the support tickets. We'll be able to track and see how we're servicing our community. Maybe it's not the tech issues that they're having. Maybe they're not having problems with the Chromebook. Maybe it's attendance concern. So we'll be able to actually recalibrate and determine and meet the needs of our families. If we can go to the next slide. And again, as I just heard from my first story about partnerships, this is just leading for further collaboration. One more slide though, please. I'm going to wrap this up in about 10 seconds. So one of the partnerships we just actually reestablished is 100 Black Men. One of the things they're actually going to be doing is providing mentors for our students, for our African-American students. And just really one of the things that we were just talking about were our social, emotional concerns that our students are having is, and what our mentors will be providing our students is coping skills. It's just tough just during this distance learning. How do we cope? How do we get through this? And it's so tough to do it through distance learning. So we were actually excited to have our 100 Black Men. And if we can go to the next slide right here. Again, these are some of the programs that are included. And one more last slide. And we're just really, this is just just an excellent opportunity for us to really grow something. We're kind of just being in partnership with our community. It's just going to be just kind of amazing where we're going to actually go with this. That's really kind of about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of speed through it.
Okay.
Thank you. No, Mr. Hicks, that was awesome. Tom, I have one more slide I want to finish just so I can get. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. So we'll wrap it up there and then open it up for questions.
Thank you. I know that we had some questions in the chat. If you'd like to come off mute and ask a question.
Yeah, Laura, let's see. I just want to say, let's see, as an agenda item at this point in time, don't we see if there are any visitor comments? Just to check in case there's any visitors that have comments on this agenda item.
We can do that, sure. If we have any visitor comments out there, now's the time to come off mute and ask your question. All right, we do not have any visitor comments, so we'll open up to the PAC members. Any PAC members would like to come off mute and ask a question?
Sure. I can wait if there's others in line.
I'm trying to get my, go ahead, Caroline.
Go ahead, Caroline.
Okay, I just really wanted to I don't know that we'll have time to address it at this meeting, but just maybe if we could get some follow-up on kind of the thoughts on how the information that we've gathered from students on how distance learning is working and not working for them, how that's informing our idea about what hybrid learning looks like. I just feel like we've kind of gotten to the point where we're starting to become more proficient at distance learning. And now we're really looking at, again, having that additional burden and workload of maybe having two different styles of learning. So I'm just curious to know how that's getting considered. And then around technology options, just some feedback from my students. has been that even though there are some technology options maybe built in, maybe there's a picture dictionary, maybe there's a read aloud function that could help with, for people with low literacy, another way to get that information. People don't always know how to use those, and especially for students. I know at least for my students, it was something that they really didn't want to ask for help on, even how to access that, what we think of as a universal design for learning feature. They really were a bit hesitant to ask for the help on how do I use that. So just something to think about as we build out our structure around technology.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Feel free to come off mute.
Looks like Stephanie has her hand raised.
Stephanie, go ahead, Stephanie.
Oh, and then Damaris.
Damaris next. Yep, Stephanie, then Damaris.
Go ahead, let Damaris go, then I'll go.
Okay, go ahead, Damaris. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie. So two things. One, in the beginning of Kristen's presentation, I'd really like us to look at a movement program. I happen to have seen one at a private school from LA, and it was just something that they were doing with the kids, just teaching them and helping them, again, with those coping skills, movement. There's a lot that we can do with it. So I will give Laura that information. And if we could just take a look at some of those programs, because we need to move. And second, Mr. Hicks, hello, good to see you again, Mr. Hicks. Long time.
It has been a long time.
I'm curious as to if I saw the chart correctly. Encina Middle School nor High School were included in that, but Sierra Oaks and
Encina's included.
And Sierra Oaks is included too.
Encina is included.
Yes, it is.
Okay, because what was that second list then?
The second list is the schools that don't get the hub support. So the hub really has individualized site-specific information. And so with a committee of people from the district, we wanted to focus on the most neediest West End schools first. Because of high school and their schedules, we opted to not do Encina on the hub portion, but to service them with the mobile unit, the walk-in unit. Does that answer your question, Damaris? This is Clarissa.
Hi, Clarissa. It does. I would love to, we'll have some conversation off screen because partnerships are everything. We've been working on partnerships forever, and I'm glad to see that we're allowing 100 Black men in finally. We have had some really good organizations, and our kids need to see people that look like them. So I'm all for it. Good job.
And to share just one more step beyond that, we're also partnering with Mutual Assistance, and they're going to have a satellite office in the West End lab as well, knowing that oftentimes families will come in for tech needs, but also need help with other resources and supports. And so we're trying to build on that partnership aspect and expand it. But again, this was a brand new program, a brand new idea that was just starting with $50,000. So it had to start somewhat small. But would love to chat with you and get your ideas to build it even stronger.
Okay. We'll have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Damaris. Thank you, Clarissa. Stephanie, would you like to ask your question? And then Tom, you're up next after Stephanie.
Hi, Mr. Hicks. Elmer said hi. So I was going over, that's one of the things, one of the questions I had was some of the ideas on the project. How can we get in touch with you? if we have more ideas for the project. So it's one of the things I've been reaching out since the pandemic was communicating and working with a lot of small businesses. Like, so I have came across like 3 vendors of masks and reaching out to like the radio station. And I was talking to Tom and Demiris more about it, but setting up a quarantine event outside of one of the school sites or district, because I live next to La Entrada. So and communicating with families. And see, I seen a lot of things with families complaining about open up schools and social distancing, and people want to be at home school, or just a lot of points that people are having problems with still. So one of the things I wanted to do was have an event where people come up and get information, like a drive-through of information on things they're still stuck on and health concerns, and actually open it up. So I wanted to reach out with you more and talk about that, with especially with Mobile Hub. How can more parents that's available volunteer as a SafeWise? So if you can reach out with me later, that'd be cool. Especially with definitely with mental health what's going on. So that's the point. So yeah, if you can reach out to me later, that'd be cool.
Thank you, Stephanie. Tom, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one of the things I noticed was it was referenced in some of the slides that Christian Schnepp presented of kids wanting, well, communications was an issue. They wanted better communications, especially to students, which fits in with our Connected School Communities Focus Area 1 of our strategic framework. And also I think specifically in the slide you mentioned social media. I know that, there was some mention that this school district does not have a social media policy, and I believe that there was some interest in developing one. Can you tell us what progress has been made on developing a social media policy? Because that seems like it might be inhibiting the use of social media that will allow some of these school connections that students are asking for.
I haven't been part of that discussion, Tom, but I can find out and get information for you.
Okay. All right. Is there, let's see, I wasn't sure if, since we have a couple of school board members on, and I think it was brought up to the school board, has there been anything that's planned to be agendized for the school board on developing a social media policy, that, since that was something that was mentioned?
Yeah, I know the work is still ongoing, Tom. At the moment, there's nothing agendaized, but that's just because some of the work continues. So as Ms. Schnepp indicated, happy to provide an update maybe at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
If not, if it doesn't get agendized prior to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand as I scroll through our frames. Okay, I don't see any other hand raised. I know Phyllis had a lot of questions, but she had to drop off early, so we will definitely forward those to the appropriate people for responses. Okay, and with that, don't see any other hands. With that, we will move into the next part of our meeting tonight. So let me just put the presentation back up. Okay. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So tonight's a very important night as well. We're going to be doing some stakeholder engagement, and as you've heard tonight from our presenters, stakeholder engagement has been going on district-wide at various sites and with various groups in the district. So we would like to do some stakeholder engagement with our PAC members, much like we did with the learning plan a few months ago, we're going to put you into breakout rooms. We have 2 facilitators in each breakout room. One will ask the questions and then one will scribe. We also, this is going out to Nicole and Stacy, our facilitators. We may have some guests that speak Spanish. I've been frenetically texting Nicole and Clarissa, and we want to thank Anna for agreeing to help translate in that breakout room. So Stacy and Nicole, feel free to use Anna. Our responses will be grouped after you answer the questions. The facilitators will walk you through grouping and titling. And once you get that done, we'll come back into the main room. If we've got time, we'll share out. We're just a little bit behind. We're not doing so badly. So once we get back in from our breakout rooms, we will go ahead and do some share out. So I am going to put let me stop the share. Oh, go ahead.
Before you do, I just would like to provide 30 seconds of context here. Again, if your commitments is around access, just to be sensitive to the fact that we may have some new members that are joining us. And so just to take a few seconds here about, what the LCAP is, that it's called the Local Control Accountability Plan. And it's a 3-year plan that describes our goals, our actions, and our services, and our expenditures to support positive student outcomes, specifically for our English learners, foster youth, and low-income student groups. And so in order for us to create a meaningful district-wide plan for improvement, we really need to hear the voices and understand the experiences of our diverse community. And this is where I've heard the word partnership come up, and this is where that partnership is going to happen here in this next activity we're going to do together. We're going to ask questions that focus on 3 areas around student learning, around connectedness, and around summer programs. These questions are aligned to the continuity plan themes that I know that many members of this group have been a part of in discussion, and then also around our focus areas as well in LCAP. And then what the idea is that the experiences are going to help inform our next steps and improvement work as we plan for the 21-22 school year, but also beyond. And so as Laura mentioned, the process we're going to take is actually similar to the process that we did to create our norms. It's the same process we've been using with our students, and it's the same process we've been using across stakeholders. Essentially, we're going to be lifting our individual voices and working together through this process to bring them together into one collective voice. With that being said here, I know that Laura already went through the process with you all. So Laura, I'm going to turn it over for you if you're prepared to put us in our groups, and then we'll rejoin ourselves after the activity there. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you. Very well said, John. Thank you for that. I just put the link to the Jamboard in the chat box. We're going to be using Jamboards tonight. For those of you not familiar with them, not to worry. Our facilitators are very familiar with them. Your part is to respond to their questions, and they will write your responses. So if everybody can copy the link in the chat box and open it up in a browser, I just want to make sure that everybody can see the Jamboard. Thank you, Nicole.
And Laura, they don't need to do that because our facilitators can share screen and they'll be able to share the Jamboards.
That's true.
So
thank you.
Don't
Thank
worry
you. They're all
about
co-hosts.
copying anything. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I forgot that we made them co-hosts. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and put everybody in breakout rooms. Visitors that joined in, since we didn't know you were here this evening, we're happy to have you. You will be the last to go. I just need to assign you to a breakout room. And again, we will have an interpreter in there for anybody that needs it.
Hi, is it possible to add that link back in the chat for the Jamboard? It's not in my chat for some reason.
Yeah, so in popping into that group, it looks like some folks would love to see what other people wrote. So what we can do, and I'll work with Heather and Tom and the group here, is that we can send out a PDF of the Jamboard so that folks can have a copy of this to look at.
Great, thank you.
And just to let you know then what our next steps will be. So like students have been asked these same questions. For our elementary students, we had to revise them a bit to make them a little more student friendly. Again, we're talking about accessible, then that includes our students as well. But the same questions around learning, connectedness, and summer programs. We've been working with our DLAC. You saw we've been working with SPAC, and there are many more other student groups as well, and parent groups and community groups will be engaging. So the idea is a lot of the themes that we found here tonight will then be looked at with other themes from the other stakeholder groups, and slowly but surely, all of that information will be brought together into one collective voice, which will become our LCAP document for our district. So I just want to thank you all for participating in this experience with one another. And I just want to also give a shout out to our, our facilitators tonight for doing such a wonderful job. There was so many great ideas. You did a lovely job. So thank you all for your, sharing your experiences and ideas. And then to our facilitators, thank you for capturing those experiences and ideas for all of us. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And facilitators, feel free to jump off. And we were so fortunate to have you here tonight with all of your expertise. So thank you so much. Okay, take care and have a good evening. And with that, I am going to go ahead and share the screen. We're not too bad. We're 7 minutes over. Tom has the next section, and he's going to lead us into it. He may go over. So for those of you who have a hard stop at 8:30, we truly understand that. Feel free to pop off. We can get back to you with any of the information that Tom is going to share. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tom. Are you there, Tom?
Let's see. Okay, there. Let's see, I'm off mute now. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. All right. As this is going to be kind of a somewhat of a crash course on LCAP, but it's also to really tap into the opportunity for our LCAP members to have what is important to them, how they personally connect, conveyed, and considered for our recommendations into the LCAP. Now, as you know, the LCAP is an annual cycle, so there's periods of the year where we look at data, where data is reported. We're now in the January, February timeframe. We're gathering stakeholder input, which is somewhat we did, in the session that we just left, as well as analyzing mid-year data, which we were presented with the data by Susan Green tonight. So that will be some of the stuff you can analyze. So go ahead and go on to the next slide, Laura. So March is where, the March meeting is where really a lot of this work comes together of our input. And so there will be homework that PAC members, we want you to do between now and March. Now, the good part of the homework is this taps into your strength, your personal connection, and what your inspiration was for why you want to be involved in LCAP. In some ways, you get to pick what your own homework assignment is, so that it will tap into your strength and experience. So go ahead, next slide. Now, because this goes into LCAP, LCAP looks at various aspects, and the LCAP document, as it's put together, it has certain categories. Now, I'm calling these frames. I'm using the terminology frame, but you can think of it as your own perspective, your own point of view, the lens through which you look at things. Some people will take broader perspectives because that's what they feel more comfortable with. Some will be narrower. The analogy I draw is like a camera. Some people like to take wide landscape shots with their camera. Others like to zero in on particular objects. So you'll get to make those choices. I'm going to describe a set of frames that you then can pick one. If you're really ambitious, you can pick more than one, but you get to pick your frame of what you want to research, study, and share information on. Next frame. There's like I consider like there are 4 broad frames. There's student groups. These are these are all kind of tied together into the LCAP document, where we report on student groups. You mentioned Susan Green earlier in her presentation. She mentioned how English language learners were doing, for example. There are indicators, and Susan Green reported on a couple of the indicators. One is student achievement, and the other is chronic absenteeism. Each one of these broad frames have within them very more narrow frames. So you can pick one of the broad frames, or more likely you'll probably want to pick some of the narrow frames. So I'll go into a bit of detail on each of 4 of these. Next slide. Student groups is probably the one that most people can relate to most directly, because we look at English language learners, we look at African American, Hispanic youth. The student groups are made of, composed of ethnic groups as well as social economically disadvantaged pupils, and English language. These are just some examples of some of them. English language learners, students with disabilities, foster youth, and homeless youth. And I'll mention these last 4 in particular because the California Department of Education has specifically told San Juan School District that these last 4 are significantly underperforming. And the California Department of Education has said that these 4 groups are what they call LCFF assistance groups, meaning they want to see particular attention paid to these last 4 student groups. Next slide. Oh yeah, and this is sort of touching upon the last report that I saw from the California Department of Ed. Go ahead, next one. That it's these 4 student groups inside San Juan that need special assistance because they are significantly underperforming. Go ahead, next slide. Now, when they're underperforming, there's lots of different ways that underperformance is measured. It's measured with what sometimes is referred to as multiple measures, multiple indicators we look at. So I'll describe some of those indicators, which you can think of. Each one of those indicators would be kind of a narrow frame. Next slide. The California Department of Education, each one of our LCAP items has a measurement on it. So how can we tell that we're improving? What goals do we want to set for next year? The state has state indicators those state indicators are defined by the state of California, and they're measured the same way for all school districts, and there's approximately 1,000 school districts in California. So such things as graduation rate and chronic absenteeism, those are measured by the state of California. They describe how they're to be measured. The academic performance grades are typically done on state testing. Some of those are not going to be available because the pandemic interrupted performance testing and state testing. There are some other indicators that are left up to the school district to define because there's so much difference between school districts. How one school district needs to get parent engagement may be very different from another school district because just because of the demographics, some school districts have very different demographics. So the state has said that school districts can decide how they want to measure parent engagement. So that's an example of a local indicator. And so our school district, as part of the LCAP, we get to decide how we're going to define those local indicators. Next, yeah. So in the LCAP by law in Ed Code has to address what the 8 state priorities, and some of that's where the student groups and the measurements, the indicators for these student groups are all really kind of tied together, reported on. That's where the goals of how we want to make progress in these areas are established, and then how we decide we're going to measure it and how they're measured and then later report it out on, have we achieved the progress that we want? Next slide. So these 8 state priorities are written into Ed Code. They must be addressed in each and every LCAP by every school district. Now, I'll say not all of them would be considered equally important. And in particular, parent and our parent community tends to focus on some that are more important. So the next slide. I would say, historically, our committee has connected with and given input on these probably these 5 state priorities. Parent engagement, we're a parent advisory committee. Who better to be able to understand how important parent engagement is, what it means, how it should be measured, because it is a foundation that if parents are not helping their students to understand the importance of education, then priority number 4, student achievement, is going to is not going to progress. And student engagement is also very fundamental to having students engaged, so that student achievement is very clear because that's measured on tests and grades. School climate, in the past we've looked at school climate as the culture on campuses, whether there has been bullying, do students feel connected, do they want to go to school? Now during the pandemic, with basically so many of students engaging with their classmates and teachers over Zoom, then what is the interaction that is occurring in Zoom meetings? Do students want to have their cameras on so they can really connect with their fellow classmates and with the teacher? Do the teachers have their cameras on because they want to connect with students too? And what is the interaction? So that's kind of how I would guess priority 6 school climate is measured. And the last, number 8 there, is a broad course of study, which really, it's like, how well are we preparing these students? So after they graduate, are they prepared for college and career? Go ahead, next slide. And
so there you go.
All right. Yeah, this is a snapshot from California Department of Ed website, where it kind of shows all 8 state priorities, how they're measured. Like I said, some are measured by state indicators that are defined by the state. Some are measured by local indicators. There's actually 1 or 2 that have both measured by a state indicator and local indicators. So just for example, in student achievement, it's just not one indicator. There are several indicators that make up how that is. Now this all comes together and is reported on the California School Dashboard, which I think is our next slide. So this is where it ties together those student groups, and you can see in column number 1, the student groups, English language learners, foster youth, homeless, Asian, Hispanic. So there are the student groups. And then the column headings, you'll see chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, graduation rate. Those are indicators. So if your personal connection or what inspires you is you want to do what's best for English language learners, then you might pick that as the framework you want to investigate and report back on in March. And you can look at English language learners through the various indicators of chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, graduation rate. Maybe your personal inspiration and connection is you really want to see that students are college and career ready. So then you can dig, sort of dive deeper and take a look at what it is at college and career readiness. Now, these indicators are basically the student achievement ones. There are indicators that aren't shown here because they're defined as local indicators, like the parent engagement one. But this allows you also to look, in this type of report is done on the school district, and it's done on each and every school. So if you go to the California School Dashboard, you can really dig deep into how the district is doing, how it's doing compared to other districts, how a high school is doing, how our high school is doing compared to another high school in the district, compared to another high school in another district. Next slide. Okay, and the last one is their strategic framework. Last year about this time, our parent advisory committee worked on a strategic framework which includes the vision and mission for our school district that was put together as part of what supports the vision and mission of our school district. There were 4 focus areas. In our LCAP committee last year had 4 subcommittees or 4 work groups. We worked on each of the 4 focus areas that make up the strategic framework that is sort of the umbrella overall vision of what we want to do as a school district. Next slide. So those 4 focus areas, and some of the members here that were with us last year, they worked in one of these focus areas as a team, and some people may want to continue that because our strategic framework continues. And so connected school communities was one that was very important. I think you noticed that that tied with some of the things that were presented tonight, how important, and in doing the jam boards, you also heard that how important connected school communities is, our focus area 1. So, okay, I think next slide.
Okay.
So so I've kind of quickly gone over all these sorts of broad frames that are made of narrow frames. So as part of your homework, want you hopefully to pick one of those frames. I'll follow up with an email to each and every one of you that pick a frame that you feel that personal connection, that inspiration with. Next slide. So here is a summary of over 20 of those frames that, just like I said, pick one. And like I said, if you're really inspired, you can pick more than one that you feel is important to you, that you want to look at in greater detail. And let's see, I think there's one more slide. Yeah.
Yes, there
we are
is.
here to support you. I realize this was like kind of a crash course on the LCAP and what it means, the ETA priorities, indicators, student groups, all of that. But we're here to support you. And for one, I also would like to see if there's any volunteers that maybe can help, especially with our new members, help be a resource to you to support that and to support you. So feel free. Okay, yes. Yeah, Laura, did you want to say
it looks like we have Damaris raising her hand. It's 8:34. I'm not sure who's still on here. Go ahead. Go ahead, Damaris.
I was only just raising my hand to say I'll help.
Okay.
Great.
With
Thank
new
you.
members.
So I'll form basically a subcommittee that I'm thinking of as it's a social and LCAP leadership subcommittee. So we can make those social connections so people feel supported as LCAP members. And also leadership, because come June, that's when this committee chooses who they want as the next chair and as the next assistant chair. So being part of this subcommittee also will help perhaps gives LCAP members that want to join it some insight as to and some experience of what may be involved should they choose to perhaps volunteer to be the next chair or assistant chair.
Great. And Stephanie, I see your hand raised. Would you like to be a part of that subcommittee as well?
You know it. And can you guys go back one slide so I can get that homework list?
Oh, we'll send this.
Send you an email.
Yeah, we'll send these slides out to you. Actually, I think you should have already received them, but we'll send them out again.
Okay.
And follow up on that. And also, by the way, just want to mention with the passing of the new bylaws, there is that should be a student leadership position that becomes available. So if there is a student that in particular is interested in joining the LCAP leadership team that helps put together the agendas for these meetings, that's another opportunity. And
I've also saw Caroline. Thank you for volunteering. We've got your name down there, so that's great. It's 8:37, so we're 7 minutes over. We've lost most people now. Tom, do you what would you like to do about the future agenda items? Should we send something out or?
Yeah, I think let's see, at this point in time, well, let's just see if there are any suggestions that people have that they would like to have on a future agenda item. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself or type something in the chat of what you would like to see as an item on a future agenda. And let's see, is Heather here?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see, Heather, I'd like to, would you like to have the floor for anything you'd like to say as we cover, I guess, future agenda items and any comments as we move towards closing out the meeting?
I don't think so, Tom. Did I?
We can hold that thought because this is.
I have remembered something?
Okay. Well, this is a discussion item. So if people have something that they would like to chime in or say or comment on or ask a question, go ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to speak up. This will. Let's see. Yeah, I think this will be for committee members.
Yeah, may I say, sir?
Sure.
Yeah, like parents' engagement for the kids is very important. As I'm being teacher previously, I'm here and I'm new also. But because of my guidance and my teacher's guidance, everyone, my kids can do little better. So every guardian, every parents have to move, like sir have said the thing, and I really appreciate the words. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neelam. Is it Neelam?
Yeah, Neelam.
Thank you. And I got your note in chat that you would like to be part of LCAP. So feel free to send me a quick email and I'll put it in the chat box and I can send you some information on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's see. I'm sorry we've gone over time here. So unless there is any final comments.
I have one final comment.
Yes.
I'd just like to say that I really enjoyed the engagement tonight compared to all of our other meetings. But even in this meeting, that part was still very limited. So I'm just hoping that in future meetings, we have more engagement and not as much being talked at. That's just my last comment.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Add in for the agenda for next meeting.
Yes, go ahead. Speak up, Stephanie. You're a little quiet.
I don't know why. Okay, are you able to hear me better?
A little bit better. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay, so I want to add in for if we could focus in on mental health and services that we have through the district and how we can engage with parents and students as well as staff members. So if we can put that on the agenda, and hopefully I came up with a presentation, so hopefully I can add it in so we can talk about it more.
Great. Thanks, Stephanie. I got it in my notes.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Any other last words? John, would you like to, I'm just looking for some hand raise. I know we were rushed tonight. We had a lot of information. Thank you for staying with us. John, would you like to close us out?
Yes, I just want to thank you all for one, welcoming me to the LCAP team, and I look forward to working with all of you. And just thank you so much. Have a safe night. Enjoy your evening. And we will see each other next month. And Tom and Heather and Laura will be in touch very soon as we collect the information from tonight and communicate out to our team. So thank you all. Have a wonderful evening.
Great. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Steve. Thumbs up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll email you guys. Bye.
Bye, Stephanie.